Hello, I'm Daniela Elana, and this is week 37 of Historical Paranormal. And this week's discussion will address the alleged curse known as the 20-year USA presidential curse, or properly, curse a Tippecanoe. It is a supposed pattern of death in office of presidents of the United States elected in years that are divisible by 20, from William Henry Harrison, elected in 1840, through John F. Kennedy in 1960. The name derived from the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811, when Harrison negotiated the 1809 Treaty of Fort Wayne, in which Indians ceded large tracts of land to the government. The treaty further angered Shawnee leader Tescumseh and brought government soldiers and Indians to the brink of war in a period known as Tescumseh's War. Tescumseh and his brother organized a group of Indian tribes to resist the westward expansion of the United States. In 1811, Tescumseh's forces attacked Harrison's army in the Battle of Tippecanoe, earning Harrison's fame and the nickname Old Tippecanoe. In an account of the aftermath of the battle, Tescumseh's brother Tescumseh supposedly set a curse against Harrison. This is the basis of the curse legend, even though it was Richard Mentor Johnson who was said to be the man who killed Tescumseh. Harrison was elected president with almost 53% of the vote, but he barely had a chance to settle into the office after his death. After delivering a very long inaugural address on a cold and windy day, he was stuck in a rainstorm and caught a serious cold, which would eventually turn into severe pneumonia infection that killed him only 30 days later. Harrison's inauguration was on March 4th, and he died on April 4th, 1841. His death was the first of a series of tragedies that struck presidents winning an election at the start of a new decade, a pattern that would become known as Tescumseh's, or the Curse of Tippecanoe. Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860 as the first person to run under the Republican Party. The United States quickly moved into a civil war would last from 1861 to 1865. On April 9th, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses Grant, thereby ending the rift that was tearing apart the nation. Only 5 days later, on April 14th, 1865, Lincoln was assassinated by Southern sympathizer John Wilkes Booth. James Garfield was elected to the presidency in 1880. He took office on March 4th of 1881. On July 2nd of 1881, Charles J. Jitu shot the president, which eventually led to his death on September 9th of 1881. The mentally imbalanced Jitu was upset because he had been denied a diplomatic post by the Garfield administration. He was eventually hung for his crime in 1882. William McKinley was elected to his second term in 1990. Once again, he defeated his opponent, William Jennings Bryan, as he had in 1896 on September 6th of 1901. McKinley was shot by Leon F. Czolgosz. McKinley died on September 14th. Czolgosz called himself an anarchist and admitted to killing the president because he was the enemy of the people. He was electrocuted in October of 1901. Warren G. Harding, elected in 1920, is widely known as the worst president of all time. Scandals such as the Teapot Dome and other marred his presidency. On August 2nd of 1923, Harding was visiting San Francisco on a cross-country voyage of understanding to meet people across the nation. He suffered a stroke and died at the Palace Hotel. Franklin Roosevelt was elected to his third term in 1940. He'd be elected again in 1944. His presidency began in the depths of the Great Depression and ended shortly after the fall of Hitler in World War II. He died on April 12, 1945, of a cerebral hemorrhage. Since he was elected during one of his terms in a year that ended with 0, he is considered part of the Tescumseh's curse. John F. Kennedy became the youngest elected president upon victory in 1960. The charismatic leader suffered some highs and lows during his short term in office, including the Bay of Pigs invasion, the creation of the Berlin Wall, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. On November 22nd of 1963, Kennedy was riding in a motorcade through Dallas and was assassinated. Lee Harvey Oswald was found to be guilty as a lone gunman by the Warren Commission. However, many people still question whether more individuals were involved in a conspiracy to kill the president. Since 1963, no president has died in office, even when elected on 20-year marks. The election of Ronald Reagan in 1980 was not followed by his death in office, despite being seriously wounded. An assassination attempt within months of his 1981 inauguration. Days after Reagan surviving the shooting, columnist Jack Anderson wrote, "Reagan and the eerie zero factor," and noted that the 40th president had neither disproved the superstition or had 9 lives. Reagan, the oldest man to be elected president at the time, also survived treatment for colon cancer while in office. First Lady Nancy Reagan was reported to have hired psychics and astrologers to try to protect her husband from the effects of the curse. However, the Reagan son, Ron Reagan, revealed in his memoir that the President Reagan began showing symptoms of Alzheimer's as early as 3 years into his first term as president. Reagan left office on January 20th, 1989, ultimately died of pneumonia, complicated by Alzheimer's disease on June 5th, 2004 at the age of 93. The president-elect in 2000, George Walker Bush, also survived 2 terms in office, which included fainting from choking on a pretzel in 2002 and 2005 assassination attempt by Vladimir Arutunian, in which a live grenade was thrown at Bush, Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili, but failed to explode. He completed his final term in office on January 20th of 2009. Elected in 2016, Donald J. Trump is considered immune from the curse, at least for his first term. The next presidential election will be held in November of 2020. Tescumseh will be watching. Whether or not the presidential curse that has gone on every 20 years is broken by the Reagan administration, never was to begin with, or may pick up again, it is an eerie trend that seemed to persist for some time in history, and only time will tell. Thank you for listening to episode 37 of Historical Paranormal. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Until next time.